I opened the restaurant and then I failed. I lost almost all my money.
Do you speak Japanese?
No, it's hard for me to visit my family. 1, 2, 3, 4, yosh, you are confirmed that everything is correct.
Ahora nos encontramos aquí con una amiga latinoamericana que realmente es brasileña y lleva viviendo aquí muchos años. Hi Simi, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Simi and also YouTuber. I focus in technology. And if you want to know my channel, please follow me in the link. He will put it anywhere.
Would you consider yourself as Latina?
Yeah, because I born in Brazil and I've been there until 17. But I have a Japanese background, so I'm not exactly like Brazilian people, but my heart is Brazilian.
Yeah, because in the first place, I think like Brazilian people might be a bit different than the rest of the Spanish-speaking countries, right?
Yeah.
Because you speak Portuguese in the first place. But you also have a Japanese background, which makes it a bit more complicated. So what was it like for you to grow as a Japanese Brazilian in Latin America?
It's very strange because we don't belong to anywhere. For example, like in Brazil, we are the Japanese people. In Japan, we are the foreigners. In China, we are also foreigners. But usually when they see our face, they will say, "Are you Brazilian? Are you sure? You don't look like Brazilians." We don't belong anywhere.
And in Brazil, do people think you're Chinese or Asian?
No, because the place I live, there is a lot of Japanese people. So usually they will say Japanese first.
There was a big Japanese community in Brazil?
Yeah, for example, like my grandfather and Diego grandfather, they just escaped from the war. For example, Diego grandfather just hid inside the boat and he didn't know where the boat was going. And my grandfather just came in the first boat that arrived in Brazil. So most of the people arrive in the same place in the south part of Brazil.
And would you say like it's easy for you to get along with regular Brazilians, or do you tend to hang out more with Japanese Brazilian people?
I think both. Usually Brazilians are like Mexican people. They are very open and they are very happy. They are very friendly, right? And the Japanese people, they like to walk with Japanese people. So it was very interesting when I was young because usually when I walk with Japanese people, we only go to the Japanese disco. And usually just Japanese disco was like the Japanese community. But when I walk with the Brazilian people, we go to the Brazilian disco and it was totally different style.
So you were like a bridge between both worlds.
Yeah.
Like you could mix with both, right?
Yeah, I think we can say like that.
What is a Japanese disco anyway?
Usually they will play the same kind of songs, but because we are like groups, usually we will enjoy more like dance, we will enjoy more like the night. And usually Brazilian disco, you go more to hunt. Like, oh, how many people I can kiss or this or that.
That's very Latin. In Mexico, we do that too. Well, not me, but people do. And then you moved to China. Why China? What was your process to get here?
No, in fact, I was never planning to come to China. I was planning to go to Japan and stay 1 year there. But then I started to date Diego and we end up staying there for 7 years. Then we decided to go to Brazil, but somebody just sold us one fake figure. And when we were talking with him, arguing, "Oh my God, you steal my money, you cheat me, and you just sell fake stuffs." And then we found out that person was Brazilian. Then we found out that person was Brazilian Japanese living in Hong Kong, selling products in Japan. So we started to become friends because this was a little unusual. And then he said, "Oh, before you go to Brazil, why you don't come to Hong Kong and find out if here you like, maybe visit in the city." And then we came just 1 week. Like 1 week we got scammed. The next week we came to Hong Kong. The next week we decided, okay, we cancel our flight to Brazil and we go to Hong Kong and we'll try our life there. Because we were with the container done. We also already sent a lot of stuff to Brazil. Our ticket flight to Brazil was already paid. But Diego just think, oh, many people will work in Japan, go back to Brazil, and they fail, they go back to Japan. Then Diego said, why we don't try another place?
So many Brazilian people go to Japan for work. I mean, why did you choose Japan? Because of your family or because of a work opportunity?
Work opportunities, because we have a Japanese background, and then for us it's easier to go there. And the job there is very hard. Usually you work in a factory and you work like 12 hours, like stand up, but you have money to buy the stuff as you want in the end of the month. So usually Brazilian people will go there, make a lot of money, and then invest in Brazil. Because most of the people don't have some kind of business business experience, they fail. Then they end up going to Japan again.
You were working in a factory. What kind of factory?
I worked in a company that make the glass for Game Boy, and I also work in a company that do the cyber shots. I was working Sony, and I also work in one factory that you know the sensor when you go back with the car and they start beep, 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 beep.
Yeah.
I did that, and then when you go through the highway without paying the fee, you use that machine with the credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we also made that.
Oh, and how did you find a job in Japan?
It's very easy because usually you work with the agents. The agency will find the job for you. Of course, they will get some commission from you, but they will help you with everything.
How did you find the agent?
I found the agents in Brazil. Many people think, oh, your life is easy because you're Japanese, you are very rich, this and that. But when I was 17, I borrowed 4,000 USD from this kind of agents because I needed to pay the ticket flights. And then my uncle also said it's better you have some debt with them because they will help you to find a job. If you just go by yourself, maybe they will prefer the people that have debt with them. So I borrowed 4,000 USD, and this is how my life started. Very young with borrowing money from people.
And why did they borrow money? I mean, how do they know that you're gonna pay and not just like run off to in Japan or hide?
Because usually they will receive your salary and then they will pay you. So in the first few months that we are in Japan, they will give you just very, very little money for you to survive. The rest they will keep paying back then.
So your salary goes to their bank account?
Yeah, and then they will pay you.
That's very interesting, very different story, because when I got an agent to work in China, I got paid and I would pay the agent.
Ah, no. In this way you can just, okay, bye-bye.
Disappear.
Yeah, but in Japan, no. But these fees are good because usually you take like 8 months to pay them back. But 8 months is time enough for you to understand the place and find out how can I find the job by myself and where I should live, where I should go. I think this is good.
How many hours did you work? What was the work like?
Since I was in Japan, I usually work at night because we can earn more money. The night shift you can get 25% more than the day shift. But in factories, you really need to work a lot. You need to work like the 8 hours, that average working hours. But usually you will work 3 hours more. But then you will count the lunch time. Usually you stay in the factory like 13 hours.
And you said it's very hard, so you have to be standing all the time, or how is it hard?
All the jobs I made, we need to be stand up, and we have the Japanese standard. So usually they will say, oh, if you need to catch this part with the right hand, with the left hand, and you know, like when I did the sensor, we needed to build 3,000 pieces per day. And all the steps we needed to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, yosh, because this is you are confirmed that everything is correct. So imagine you the whole day, like 1, 2, 3, okay, yosh, next one, 1, 2, 3. This is like just, we can call monkey job.
You have to say it?
Yeah, we need to say it. Because if the leader goes around and they don't see you doing that, they will call you and say, oh, you need to point out. You need to use the right hand. Maybe if in the manual say you need to hold with the right hand, you grab with the left hand, they will... yeah. And there was one time I was, you know, when we use the long sleeve, we have the button, right? My button was open, and then they record it and they show in the meeting in the morning. This is how you cannot do. You can see her button was not tight.
Yeah.
And then I got scored in front of everybody.
You got exposed.
Yeah, and then we need, because Japanese people are very restricted. So then we need to go in front of everybody and then we say, oh, I'm sorry, I will not do this again. And then we need to write a letter asking like sorry. And we need to keep asking sorry for a long, long time.
A letter in Japanese?
For us it's in Portuguese, but they will translate and then they will show to the leader in Japanese.
Do you speak Japanese?
No. Because usually in the factories we work, they will separate by section. So I work in the Brazilian section.
You were very young then. Did you speak any English?
No. In the Brazilian section, we have the Brazilian leaders. And even though the Japanese leader come, you cannot talk with them because this is like up to your status.
Yeah.
You cannot like...
You didn't speak any English or any Japanese, and you were working in Japan, but reporting to Brazilians for 7 years. Yeah. That's a long time. Is there a lot of Latin American people, or is it only Brazilian people that go there, or Brazilian Japanese?
Anybody who has the Japanese background, you need to have Japanese background to get the visa. Now they are open these visas for more people. That time, even like you are 4th generation, will be a little hard.
How is it like to make friends or to even date? You said that you met Diego. Did you meet him in Brazil or in Japan?
No, Diego, we know each other since we are like 5.
You go together to Japan?
No, we date one time before I go, and then I went in January. He arrived in April. Then suddenly he called me and he said, "Oh, I am in Japan. Where are you?" When we found out, he was just one station if you get the speed train from me, so like half an hour by train.
So he went following you?
I never know about.
Maybe.
He will deny. He will deny.
We will have to ask Diego. And were you already together when he went to Japan?
No, we just date one time. But then we just said, I don't know how many times I will stay there, and then everything happens naturally.
How long did it take for you to get together when you were in Japan?
It was like a little fast because we start to go very often out. Every weekend we say, do you have something to do? And then like naturally we become together again.
You got cheated 7 years in Japan, then you get cheated by this guy who was selling the figures. You decide to move to China, and what did you do in China? Did you start your own business? Did you get a work?
Because we are always inside of this kind of game stuff, technology stuff. So when we arrived in Hong Kong, we decided to sell game products. So in that time, we will sell games, consoles, and everything related with games by online. But then I had the problem with my visa, and we think, should we go back to Brazil? And then Diego said, everything we buy from China. Why we don't go there? And then we just think, okay, let's go.
How did you get your Chinese visa?
In the beginning, we just do as everybody. We use the business visa, but every 1 month we need to go out. In that time, it was very troublesome because we spent a lot of money. And then a few years later, we got the 6-month visa, also business visa. But there was one time that they have one kind of very important meeting in China. So they only give me 7 days visa. And in that time, I was already selling online, but other stuff. And then we were very worried, what we will do. We go out, coming back, and then they also gave us 7 days. And then Diego said, okay, it's better we go back to Brazil. We get the tourist visa for 1 year, and we open one company. Then we opened the company.
How complicated was it to open a company in China?
I was very lucky because usually the law in China changed very fast. And when we decided to open a company, they was just make it easy for people to open the company. So we didn't need to invest the money. But most of the time you need to invest like 500,000 and you need to let the money there, and you need to use the money with your company. For example, like foreigner people needed to have all the money in one time. For Chinese people, they put the money in and the next day take the money out. But when I opened the company, we just needed to say, we will invest. But we don't need to put the money there.
Now, what does your company do here in China?
Now I only do the videos. So most of the money, the incoming money, I will say is like market.
How did you go from having a business and selling the toys to opening a YouTube channel, which is very successful? I'll leave the link down below. How did you do that transition to become a YouTuber?
In fact, we were thinking to do the YouTube videos for a long time. But I also wanted to do the restaurant. So I opened the restaurant and then I failed. I lost almost all my money. I didn't even have money to go back to Brazil. And then Diego said, okay, now we need to think about something. Then I start to work in one company to get the money back, at least to go back to Brazil. But
what were you doing in that company?
Also selling products online. All my life is related with products. That's why I chose tech. And then in that time, Diego just feel, it's a little pity. We just have the money to go back to Brazil, nothing else. But we still wanted to do YouTube. Then I talked with my father. My father said, you need to have one goal. For example, you can get this money 1 year. You try. If you cannot succeed, you just come back, no regrets. So that's why we did. We take all the money we have at that time. We bought the camera, we bought the lights, we bought everything, and then we started YouTube. And gladly, it worked.
And it did work a lot. Was it always tech?
In the beginning was a vlog, but a vlog, I think it don't go very well, at least for Brazilian people. Then, because I love tech so much, we switched to tech.
And having been in so many different countries, where would you say that there is more opportunities for a foreigner?
China, for sure. Because Japan, I think there is also a lot of opportunities, but you need to speak Japanese because there is a lot of rules, and also there is a lot of foreigners then, and the country is too small. But here, you can invest in so many things. Maybe you can be a vlogger, you can be a trader, you can be actor, like there is a lot of foreigners, they just give also English class. So here, I think there is a lot of opportunities for everybody.
Yeah, China is a great place also for us, but there has to be like some pros and some cons. So what would you say has been the best part of living in China and the worst part?
Here is very safe. I think no matter where you go, even Japan is also very safe, but China, you can just go around and then you buy everything you want. You carry your mobile phone 2 a.m. in the street. Nobody will care. Nobody will take, right? I think this is the most important thing. And also everything happens very easy and very fast, and is like anything we want, just internet, and then we can get, right? I think this is convenient. The cons is just because we are very far from Brazil, and it's hard for me to visit my family. I think maybe 90% good, 10% bad.
Would you say it's hard to meet people here in China and to make friends?
The problem is for you to keep the friends, because most of the people, they will go back to their country. So maybe you have a very good friendship, but you never know if you see them again.
Do you have any Chinese friends?
Yeah. I think Chinese people are very friendly and they are very open. I think they are like Latin American people. Even you are walking the street and then you start to talk, and then they are already invited, let's go to my house, have a dinner, have a lunch or something like that.
Do you speak Chinese?
No.
So no Chinese, but now you speak English.
Yes.
So is English enough to live in China?
Not enough, but it will help a lot. I think you can try to communicate with them with the translation, and people are very interested to learn English, so they will try the best to talk with you.
What would you say are like the cons of not speaking Chinese?
I think we cannot understand, for example, in this museum, there is so many interesting things I would like to know, but I cannot understand. So I need to keep asking. I think this is a little upsetting, right? But the good thing is, usually when you don't talk Chinese, people will try to help you a lot. For example, there was one time I was in one restaurant, and that restaurant line would need to wait 3 hours. And then I told her, how can I know you will call me? And she said, I will call you. I said, I cannot understand Chinese. And then she was just thinking, okay, just stand here. One table open, she just put me there. Then I didn't need to wait.
Have you ever felt discriminated either in Brazil, Japan, or China? And if so, why?
In China, I think I was never mistreated. In Japan, happens because Brazilian people do a lot of bad things in Japan. For example, in the old times, they will just disappear. They will not pay the rent. Or in Japan, you need to pay to throw away the stuff. So usually they will just abandon everything inside the apartment, or they will abandon the car in the parking lot. But in Japan, there is some kind of rules. If you don't report that you are going out and you don't pay, they cannot take out the car from like 2 years. So many people in that time, didn't want to rent the parking lot or the apartments for Brazilian people. Mm-hmm. So in Japan, I suffer a little.
So it's like maybe the Latin people have a bad reputation in Japan, right?
Yeah, they like a lot the Latin people just for this specific case, like renting and like apartments.
Yeah, the cultures are very different. Like even Mexican people, we're maybe more open. We don't really listen a lot to rules. So it can be like that. But in China, what's the perception that people have of you? What's it like to be Latino here?
Yeah, but this is the thing, because I have a Chinese face. So most of the time, if I don't speak, they don't notice.
And what did they say when you tell them you're from Brazil?
They don't believe. Then they will say, no, you are not Brazilian. And then I say, no, I am Brazilian, but my family has a Japanese background. And then they say, oh, so you are Japanese. So whenever they say to me, I agree. When they say, oh, you are Chinese. Oh, yeah, my family. But I cannot speak Chinese. I would just agree with them.
And what do people think of Brazil here in China? Because if you say Mexico, they say drugs, guns, violence. What about Brazil?
Soccer. They will say, Neymar or Ronaldo, this kind of things.
Yeah, like dancing.
Yeah,
But for you, Japan?
Yeah, sometimes people think I am Korean too.
Of course, it's hard to tell. Yeah, but it's a very interesting story, Simi, that you shared with us today. So thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Please follow the channel. It's really interesting about tech. There's English and there's Portuguese, and it's a good way to learn another language. Thank you very much, Simi. Anything else you want to add?
Just follow Mexicans in China, and don't forget to subscribe and give a like, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.